The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors: Woodland Stud, Brecon Farms, New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, Stonewall Stud, the clubs Alexandra Park, Cambridge, Addington and Ashburton, Garrard's Horse and Hound, and IRT. It's your horse and our passion. Hi everyone, welcome into another edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Simply, without them, we would not be here. Michael Guerin, I need to stop talking because there is a heck of a lot to get through as we've just had a whirlwind of harness racing over the last 7 days.
Yeah, hi Greg. Big hi to everybody who's taken the chance to watch us somewhere around Australasia. Massive week. Incredible double we'll talk about in two different parts during this show. Of course, the show headlined by a remarkable derby and an almost unbeatable Menangle miler. As you said, Gregory, lots coming up in the next 57 minutes.
So let's get straight into it, Michael. We'll also hear from the CEO of Harness Racing New Zealand around our COVID issues from last week and another very interesting point. But let's get to the Woodlands Derby and the most remarkable derby that we've seen in such a long time. Krug, he ended up being favourite. He opened at $3.20. So let's go to the start of that race and see what unfolds, because the gate hits the 2,700 metre mark, and many thought, Michael, that he would go forward. Once he got there, though, things changed dramatically.
Yeah, they did. Crandell Goody, his co-trainer, had been buzzing him up in work to get him screwed down for this race. He clearly did that, but probably didn't expect to get him quite this screwed down. He absolutely took off on Tony Hurley. We'll hear from Tony after this quite remarkable win in the Woodlands Derby, the sixth fastest time in the history of the race.
Luke John, 75 to go. Krug's in front. Luke John Krug on very weary legs, but he's going to get the Derby, and a sensational Derby win at that. Krug, you won't see much better than that at Alexandra Park. Further back in the field, Luke John for second, and third across was American Deer.
What the hell was going on out there?
I thought he was just well rated out in front.
I thought he was hitting the sulky stays or the discs or something, Tony. I can't ever remember seeing you that far in front on a Group 1 before. Well, not till the end anyway.
No, Cran certainly had him ready on the night, and yeah, no, he just from the 1800 he just started to really hook into it. I tried for about a furlong just to settle him down, but he just wasn't coming back to me, so I just went with him and thought, oh well, you know, you usually get run down, as you know, you usually get beat for sure, but he's such a nice horse and a very good horse, so yeah.
Were you worried that if you fought him any longer, he might start to choke down or get even more aggressive?
Yeah, I didn't want to choke one down in front, Mick, so I just let him do his thing, but with control. You know, I tried to just sort of still keep a hold of him, but yeah, to be fair to him, like even across the top there, he was still travelling a wee bit and got tired the last wee bit, obviously, but the others got tired trying to catch him.
Have you ever had anything like that happen in a major race before, Tony?
No, I don't think so. No, not like to that extent, and just over raced so badly, but yeah.
He must be a pretty good horse. I mean, obviously he's gone 3:18 and he's done it like a personal time trial, Tony, so it looks like there's an open class motor there.
Oh yeah, for sure, Mick. You know, he usually is such a relaxed horse. You know, he probably was getting a bit too relaxed when I was first driving him there. A couple of times we thought he perhaps should have won and he didn't, and Cran's done a great job just to resurrect his thinking and got him quite aggressive, but too aggressive tonight.
He's a brave little horse, isn't he?
He's a proper little trooper, you know. Couldn't wish for a nicer little horse. Never ever gone bad. Just a good little tradesman.
And he'll pop down to Addington for the Derby?
Yes, that's the plan also, yeah.
So a brilliant performance by Krug. Fifth derby for Tony Hurley. Second for Crandell Giddy, of course, training with his wife Chrissy. This one, Michael, he won it with Rakapukarula back in 2017. I spoke to Cran this morning about how he's arrived home and the horse is bouncing around. I said, were there any concerns about him potentially trying to do that again? He said, no, we'll take the blinds off. He's far more relaxed normally in the run, and he doesn't see any any long-term issues in that regard. He's now $4.40 to win the Diamond Creek New Zealand Derby. Ragazzo Mac, I spoke to Nathan Williamson about that. He had a trial last week, another one this week, and he'll come to Addington Raceway for what is now the Ian Dobson Stakes, and getting behind that 3-year-old race leading into the Vero and then obviously the Derby. So he was very good, Krug, and there were a couple of good runs in behind. The second horse is also making its way to Christchurch, and Luke John, I thought he was very good. American Dealer does what American Dealer does every time he goes to the races, as you heard from Ray Green, Michael. He was solid again.
He was great. He's a very brave little horse. Luke John's been the most progressive horse of this crop. He's the horse who's emerged in the north, Ragazzo Mac obviously being the one who's emerged in the south. It was exciting. I was actually lucky enough to be on track, even though it was level 3, and it was exciting. I just wish there'd been a crowd there. They would have absolutely loved it, because I watched it in the main racing manager's office there, and there was only 3 or 4 of us watching, but he was so far in front, and these are hardened racing people. They're like, wow. And everybody on track afterwards, Greg, in the stabling area was just like, what just happened? And had there been a few thousand people there to see that, it would have been a fantastic advertisement for harness racing. I think he's the best of the crop without having seen Ragazzo Mac fully exposed. The bookies gave you a hell of a chance. 3.2 when we recorded the show last week. You get into about $1.75, $1.80, Greg. So no complaining there. Some question marks about those behind him. I think it's hard to make a case that most of those are going to beat him in a derby, unless maybe an American Dealer type horses up on the speed. And the horse who really did shock the punters was the early pre-post favourite, It's All About Faith. He was well below his best on the night, Greg. And there's two sides to him. There's always a chance he can do something like that. But I do think in a race run quite that upside down, Gregory, almost any horse who gets beaten, you're willing to say, well, I'm not going to put a complete pen through you yet, because that was a pretty weird experience.
Yeah, it definitely was. Domestic Group 1 win number 70 for Tony Herlihy. Is he in front of Ricky May, Michael Guerin?
That sounds light to me. Is that correct? 70 Group 1 wins?
Domestically for Tony. Ricky May?
That genuinely surprises me. I would have thought Tony had a lot more than that. That really surprises me.
Yep. Ricky May, 71.
Ricky? Okay.
Yep.
70. See, again, to most people, and this is by no means being rude to Ricky, most people would think Tony Herlihy had driven more Group 1s, because obviously he had that huge machine of the Roy and Barry Purdon stable behind him. Admittedly, they split the drives between 3 people, Mark and obviously Barry, but I would have thought Tony would have had more than that. I suppose he's also had an enormous amount in Australia as well. So,
yes.
Yeah, that's a surprise for me, Gregory, but I'm actually glad Tony was driving the horse. Had it been a younger driver or a less experienced driver, people would have thought he was a complete pickle. But we all know Tony, we know he's a pickle, so we're totally fine with that.
He had a bit of an old rocker look about him as well. He might just want to trim up around the ears. Not
well,
that
it was level 3, brother. We know you don't have level 3 on the South Island, but trust me, it was hard to get a haircut in Auckland last week.
Right, let's move on to the first of a very unique double. Of course, we're talking about the Pascoe's the Jewelers Oaks and the performance of Better Twist. She was outstanding. Let's go to the start, the way she worked her way to the front. Of course, there were changing of the deck chairs in terms of the drivers. Getting off the gate very quickly was the Honey Queen. Very good performance from her. She's come a long way in a short time, Michael, but you see Better Twist settle there in the 1-1, but it wasn't long until Zachary thought, I'm on the best horse, I need to dominate this race.
He drove her inch perfectly because he knew the lead was going to be there. The Honey Queen wasn't going to try and park her out, and obviously Darling Me was tucked away on the inside. So once she rolled to the front, you sort of always felt she was going to win, Greg, but she didn't win imposingly, and I'm not sure that's what type of horse she's going to be. She's not lazy, but probably a bit relaxed. And I thought Zach in the middle stages had actually gone too slow, because he gave those speedsters around him a chance to maybe outswoop him. But at the top of the straight, she was still just going to kick clear. She's a very, very good stayer. I think she's going to develop into an outstanding mare, but her record already, winning this race, which of course her dam won, and setting up the first leg of that remarkable double, well, she's turning into one of the more valuable female horses in the country.
Better twist, and she'll emulate Mum's win back in 2012 with a lovely win in the Oaks. Better twist from the Honey Queen, second and third over was Darling Me.
Well, that's a hell of a catch drive, mate.
Been pretty exciting stuff. When I got the message from Mark, I thought, all my Christmases had come at once. So a little bit of pressure on it, but like you say, when you're driving for Mark and you got the horse underneath you, it actually makes it pretty easy. You know, just roll around to the front and the rest was history.
She looked to be mucking around a touch. Would you get the feeling that if maybe something had come near her a bit sooner, she might have gone a bit harder?
Yeah, 100%. I was actually sort of hoping they'd come outside me a bit earlier than what they did. And, you know, you can ask her to go without, you know, wiping her too much. And like anything, when Josh got up to me and she saw him, she actually took off again. So I was a little bit worried halfway up the straight he'd come a bit quick, but Timmy, I had a word to him earlier today and he said, don't worry, mate, if you're in front, you know, she'll just keep giving, and that's exactly what she did.
Must be nice to get one of Hayden Cullen's first ever Group 1 wins. You're both Cambridge boys. I'm sure you've known him since you were a little fella.
Yeah, Hayden rang me today too and wished me luck, and I said, oh, what do you think? And he just said, do what you want, mate. So, you know, that's pretty good. There was no pressure, just go out and enjoy the drive, and I said to him, sure, I just hope I can get it for you, and we did, so that was good. And I'll buy a couple of boxes of beers for the boys down south, and they can celebrate the win too.
Okay, so it was going to be Tim Williams, and then it was going to be Mark Purdon, so I suppose you've got a few people to shout, really, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. We might have to up how much boxes of beers I buy, I think.
Talking about the filly, obviously she looks like a real stayer. Is she a horse who's deceptive over the ground? Because she doesn't look fast, but the times are fast.
Yeah, well, dead right. I think she ran over in 27.2, and to me, 100%, it didn't feel like we were going that quick. She covers the ground so well. You know, she's such a big striding filly that, yeah, it probably is deceiving how quick you can go. And again, Timmy said to me when he got beat, I think by Enjoy Me, and he said I let her slide down the back, and I didn't think I was going as quick as what I did, but he said just be careful. So I think, you know, in the end, I almost went too slow tonight, so I was lucky.
I'm going to ask you this question because I know you have no idea about the answer, and I'm going to show people how little you know. How many Group 1 wins have you had now?
Oh,
I knew you wouldn't know. I knew you wouldn't know this.
Been lucky. I think most of them have been for Barry.
Not a number. Have you got a number?
I'll go between 15 and 16 maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. Everyone's been enjoyable. That's the main thing.
That was pretty humorous there, as we come to expect from Zachary. 17, Michael, and when I spoke to him earlier this week, I said, what about Australia? And he started adding them up. He had no idea, 4 or 5 maybe. So let's just say he's got over 20 Group 1 wins. The other remarkable stat out of that race, Michael, was first, second and third, all of the dams of those horses had won the Oaks before. So I don't know that would have happened. I certainly can't remember it anyway.
No, and we'll see a lot more of that. We're seeing a lot more of those modern families and the high-class families repeating and repeating and repeating. There's a lot less anomalies in the system now, Greg. It's very rare you come across outstanding horses and go, wow, didn't see that. You know, never heard of that family before. So I think it's also due to the fact that they're going to the best stallions all the time, which obviously helps. She's obviously a very, very good filly. By the way, just with Zach, when he said driving for Mark, he said it's old habits die hard. He came back and apologised and said, oh, look, I feel really bad. I know Hayden trains the horse, but I'm so used to thinking about Mark when it comes to this horse. And I think a lot of people are too, but this is clearly Hayden Cullen's Group 1. It's not Mark's, obviously. She's obviously worth a stack of money. If she never raced again, she's worth a stack of money, but she's favourite for the Oaks down south. She'll be favourite for the Jewels, which is probably a race she'll be vulnerable in, the Jewels, if she's going to be vulnerable again this season. I think she's a horse who can set herself up to get beaten sometimes, Greg, because she might often be parked outside a La Rosa or a Darling Me or all those sort of horses. But when you consider the fact she's still very new, what she could do next season as a 4-year-old mare, there's a little tiny bit of Adore Me about her. By no means am I saying she's Adore Me, who was a sensational filly and a great mare, Greg, but she's got a little bit of that about her that you think she could go on and become a very good open class mare. Whether she can transfer that form across to open class boys in a year's time, that's a far bigger jump, but of course, Amazing Dream managed to do it.
Yep, she did. La Rosa disappointed again, just dug those toes in and she was out of play. Actually, she ran home quite remarkably to get as close as she did, Michael, but you can't be doing that at any level, let alone at Group 1 level. And of course, congratulations to Hayden Cullen too. Group 1 win number 1 for him. I'm sure it'll be the first of many. Right, let's move on to the third of our Group 1s from the night. It was the Cardigan Bay Stakes, and well, this was again a very good performance, an outstanding performance from Montana DJ. Not often, Michael, at this level do you dominate by sitting parked and just doing the business. That's exactly what happened here. Zachary Butcher was going back-to-back at Group 1 level as well, and we'll hear from co-trainer Scott Phelan on the back.
Operator 2 lengths. I'm your Huckleberry. Casino Action looking to stride home down the outside. 75 to go. Classy operator Montana DJ. Montana DJ just gets his head in front. Montana DJ for the Group 1 Brecon Farms Young Guns Cardigan Bay Stakes over Classy operator Casino Action.
Well, Scotty, you may not have been on the bike for this one, but it must have been pretty exciting to get the job done on the track.
Yeah, no, it was. No, like, I've really wrapped. Me and Barry can get a Group 1 together, and you know, it's always been a big dream. So you know, it's great to get.
He's obviously a pretty good horse. You don't sit parked and win a Group 1 very often on this track, and particularly not at your third start.
No, exactly. No, like, I think he's a pretty decent stayer, and he showed that tonight. So look, he'll only get better, I think. So you know, onwards and upwards.
He costs a lot of money. You guys have obviously been patient. You haven't rushed him into this series. You've only had the one heat before he won his second start. So clearly there should be some improvement there.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. You know, and I know he costs a lot of money, but it costs a lot more these days. So look, as long as we can get a good return, you know, I was a rep for Dean Shannon. Like, he's one of the biggest owners in the stable, and you know, just so happy for him.
I presume there's the natural progression through sire stakes, sale series, and if things are going well, the duel.
Yep, no, exactly. You know, he'll keep on that path until he tells us he had enough, and if he does, we'll put him aside to next year, which look, I think he'll be even a better 3-year-old.
What you won't know is that when people talk to Barry about you, he raves about your work ethic and what you're doing for the stable. It must be great to be in a partnership with a guy who's meant so much to your career.
Oh no, exactly. You know, he's been great, and look, we've got a great team. Whippet, our foreman, he's great, and you know, got good guys around us. So you know, it is a team effort, as they all say, and you know, it's definitely not any different here.
You've had a few horses leave the stable. You sold a couple. Mark Shard's gone across to Sydney. Must be nice to have horses like this and Major Perry, who we didn't see the best of tonight, coming through.
Yeah, no, it is. You know, these are what keep the stable going. You know, it gets all the guys up in the morning, and you know, they're happy to work nice horses like these. So yeah, while it's sad to see some horses go, you know, we watch them on TV, and it's great to see them racing good.
He's exciting. He's by Captain Treacherous, Out of One Dream, again impeccably bred. I thought the second horse was very good. I reckon Major Perry's going to be a force to be reckoned with though, Michael, because he made up a stack of ground late in the piece, and nothing wrong with Casino Action's performance. So Classy operator Casino Action, they've all got Group 1 placings now, and again, they're going to be right amongst it throughout the season. It's
a nice enough bunch, isn't it? Look, it's a good enough bunch that you've got to go, okay, these aren't just little whippets who are just going to turn up and be early season 2-year-olds. Major Perry might be a really progressive horse, but the winner was good. He cost $175,000. It's a lot of money for a Captain Treacherous, so Barry must have really liked what he saw there. Dean Shannon is a wonderful owner for the barn, very good to deal with apparently. When you talk to Dean at the races, it's all up. Whatever Barry and now Scotty wants, all cool. But the most important thing for the win for me, Greg, was Scott Phelan's involvement.
Yep.
When you talk to Barry, and I've known Barry for 30 years, and when you ask him about Scott, he raves about just how hard Scott works and how organised he is and the role he plays in the stable. And look, Barry's got nothing left to prove as a trainer. So you need that younger trainer coming through to keep that motivation and to keep everybody up on their toes and feeling good. So Barry really raves about that, and I'm really proud of Scott for coming back to that level. He was in Australia 5 or 6 years ago, and probably a lot of us had sort of forgotten how good a horseman he is. So I think it's a really big team win for them. But to see young guys like Hayden getting his first Group 1 and Scott's first Group 1 with Barry, again, I just wish there'd be more of a crowd there so we could have enjoyed it together, Greg.
Yep, well, we'll move on from that one, go to the Crombie Lockwood Delightful Lady Classic. This is for the 2-year-old fillies, of course, and it was an even bunch as the gate rolled for this one, and there was also a bit of controversy at the start. The runner-up, Dance Till Dawn, in the hands of Brent Mangos. Things got pretty tight here. Michael, he's driving in the Robert Dunn colours. Punching through from the second row was Scott Phelan with the favourite Artisan, and things got really tight here, and as a result, I think there's an inquiry into that which is still ongoing, but at the end of the section, it was the Tony Hurley trained Mr. Kaplan, which got the business done, racing here and racing away and winning it quite nicely, Michael.
Yeah, unusual name for a filly, but look, she was very good fresh up. They weren't surprised by the victory. She absolutely bolts it at the end, to be honest. Let's hear from Tony Hurley about this unusually named filly after her Group 2.
Dance Till Dawn second, up for third, I'd say. Chevron's Bypass from the stablemates Artist.
Well, Tony, it's a filly with an odd name, Mr. Kaplan, but she's clearly pretty good.
Yeah, she's always shown ability. She was a bit of a tough girl to break in for the breakers. Ian Hilliard actually did her earlier on, and she was a bit of a handful there for a while, but she's come around to it, and every time we've brought her back in, she's kept improving and shows a bit of stamina, so I think she could go on with it. You know, she's that type of filly.
The owners of this filly have been with you for a long time. You trained the dam as well, and I know they would have loved to have been here tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're a great bunch of people who have a family of people, mum and dad and Paul, the son. So, yeah, they would have loved to have been here tonight. Obviously, winning a group race, they've never done that, so but they'll be thrilled at home.
One thing about her, Tony, while we don't know much about this crop yet, she looks the type of horse who might cop a bit of racing. She seems pretty tough.
Yeah, she is fairly tough, and like Josh was really impressed with the way she finished it out, and he said she did it really well. So, and they've run a reasonable time. So, yeah, and like I said, hopefully just can keep improving like they've got to.
Is it a case that you just go to all the major targets now, look for the sire stakes, look for, I presume, the jewels? Being a homebred, she wouldn't be a sales horse?
No, she's not a sales horse, and I'll have to check up where she is staked for. So, yeah, but if she keeps everything going forward, like the jewels is obviously a very good option.
Michael, Margaret and Paul Kane, yes, they did breed this once. They had 3 foals time and tide to race for 3 winners, including Queen Lostress, Michael, who won about 5 races and taken 152 in the States. So they're great supporters of the stable, and Better Than Cheddar hasn't had a huge number of stakes winners, so a good result there too.
Yeah, Tony's been a good supporter of Better for Cheddar. He's had a couple of them through the barn with success. Still can't work out where Mr. Kaplan came from. I naturally thought of Harvey Kaplan, actually, the Australian breeder, but I don't think it's got anything to do with him. So apparently it's from a television show. So there you go. I don't watch a lot of TV, Greg. So pretty good filly. I have absolutely no idea who the best of this crop is. We'll see the southern fillies a little bit later on, but I think it's a crop with lots of moving parts, Greg, but she's tough, and it's a big bonus for these fillies because it means, you know, if they do weaken off or if they start to grow, they can sort of run through the pain barrier a bit. Willing to forgive on Artisan. Yeah, as I said, nice win. Congratulations to the owners. What it all means in the grand scheme of things, Greg, I don't know.
Michael, we're getting pretty close to another milestone, and when I spoke to Tony yesterday and said he was on 995 training wins, he said, as only he could, I thought I was already there, and then he said the only person that'll be surprised by that will be Roy Purdon, and then laughed, as only Tony could do.
I remember when Tony started training, it was when Mark decided to move to the South Island, and Tony went out on his own, and a lot of people were like, oh yeah, we all love Tony, wonder how he'll go as a trainer. It was very, without being disparaging, people weren't sure that he was going to be organised enough or strict enough or care enough. And he's done a fantastic job. 1,000 wins as a trainer is an enormous body of work when you think you also add to that 3,500 wins as a driver. And he's also done a lot of travelling across the Tasman. Like, you talk about New Zealand wins, of course, right back at the start of his career, he won a Breeders' Crown with Bella's Boy in Australia, and he's won a lot of other races in Australia. So he'd be past 1,000 wins if you roll them all together. His body of work between training and driving, absolutely massive, Greg, and he's brought young people through. Josh Dickey drove that horse. Josh worked for Tony for a long time. Tony Cameron, who we'll see very shortly, now works for Tony. So some of those skills he's passed on to other people, are really important to the industry. And it's easy to take Tony as a bit of a joker because he's always got a smile on his face. But then you see what he did in the Derby the other night by not choking that horse down, and you realise that this is a really rare era we're living in New Zealand harness racing, to have him and to have Morris and to have Ricky, to have hopefully Dexter come back someday, to have a Blair Orange. It's a pretty special time, and sometimes it's easy to take it for granted.
That's why I thought it was worth mentioning, Michael, and we'll certainly celebrate when he does, I think, become about the 8th trainer to have got to that 1,000 win club. Right, let's move on to the Auckland Co-op Taxis free-for-all, and copy that. He does the business again, Michael. The surprising thing was the $1.40 that was offered earlier in the week. He got shorter than that. He's up over 350,000 now, and he completely dominated, and Morris McKendry went to 3,300 wins, and you won't get too many easier than this.
Now, this is his modus operandi these days, copy that. Just jump to the lead and dominate. And it's almost like watching a trial, Greg. The thing actually that grabbed me out of this race wasn't the win, because that was really good, but the emergence of Kango. Kango was outstanding running second. Poor old Kango, if he stood on copy that, he might kill him, because he's about a foot taller than him. And Christian's half time was really good. So that the win didn't surprise me, nothing unusual there. Really happy to see the second and third horses emerging, because we are losing some open class horses in the north, and we need those emerging horses. News coming out that this horse may be heading to Queensland for a campaign. Greg, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. I'm not sure Ray Green wants to be jumping on a plane to Queensland anytime soon, because as Ray said to me a couple of months ago, he said, I'm 73. I'm not sure about COVID. I'm not sure how that's all going to shake out. I think it's an option for the horse. Whether he ends up there, I think, will probably be COVID restrictions dependent. Yeah, they got that new race, that $250,000 race that didn't transpire last year as a result of COVID. So we'll just keep an eye on what does happen there. Also thought that Typo was excellent getting home. And you're right, Michael, we need these horses coming through. So a couple there for Anna Donnelly that are going to be around in all of the big 4-year-old races, you would think. Right, let's move to the next of our features, which, of course, the favourite got beaten in. Yes, it was an opportunity for Temporale to turn the tables on Bolt for Brilliance. Right about here, Michael, you're probably thinking that wasn't going to be the case, but he was excellent, Temporale. There's nothing to knock about him. Another very brave performance, but there was nothing in it at the finish.
Temporale moves up. Bolt for Brilliance finds plenty. Temporale, the old warhorse, draws up on the outside. Oh, very, very tight. Bolt for Brilliance, if I had to go for one, I'd say gets there and knows Temporale. What another great tussle between these quality square gators. Then came Call Me Trouble.
So he gave him 10 metres to Temporale. Tony Cameron gets past one of the rising stars in the trotting gate in Bolt for Brilliance, but only by a short margin. Win 19 for him, Michael. He's earned over 600,000, and he's just been a grand campaigner. And I suppose the irony there that a former Tony Herlihy trained runner who'd won twice at Group 1 level at this place, the Road Cup, and of course a national trot, gets to beat Tony driving Bolt for Brilliance.
And fair and square. Bolt for Brilliance got the lead in the middle stages pretty easily. He'd worked a little bit, but Temporale gave him a 10 metre start, came from behind him and beat him in a dogfight down the straight. I'm not sure Bolt for Brilliance is 100% screwed down going as good as he was last October. He seems to be just dicking around a bit and looking around, and he's only young. We put so much pressure on this horse because we know how good he is, but of course he's only 4. Whereas Temporale's an old hardened performer. There was a lot of post-race consternation that photograph didn't come up on trackside, but Alexandra Park don't have the ability to put an actual photo finish up. They don't have that capabilities through trackside, so not blaming trackside for that. A lot of people had all-up bets ending on that horse. I tipped that out to the boys get paid, so a lot of their people got involved, Greg, and it was like, oh, well, this is some sort of scandal. That's just nonsense.
Yep.
The judge at Alexandra Park or anywhere else in the world couldn't give a shit who wins the race. They just don't care. They've got a job to do, they do it. If you're going to bet, and I had a bet, a multi landing on that horse on Bolt for Brilliance, if you lose, you lose. But more importantly than that, when there's losers, there's winners. Temporale's a wonderful old horse, trained by 2 people who do an enormous job for trotting races at Alexandra Park, and Michelle Wallace and Bernie Hackett. They put so much into keeping some of these races going. And young Tony Cameron's a guy who's got a wonderful backstory. He was suffering from Hodgkin's lymphoma a few years back, and that's obviously something none of us would ever love to go through. But he fought that off, and he's recovered from that. Last week, he and his partner, Georgia, had their first daughter, Indy, and for Indy to arrive in Tony and George's life, and then Tony to win his first ever group race, beating a really good horse in Bolt for Brilliance and beating his boss. A wonderful story, Greg. So let's not get carried away with the punt. Yes, Bolt for Brilliance got beaten and some people lost some money. But a wonderful horse driven by a really good young man who's had an incredible time in his life won that race. And that's far more important to me, Greg, than a few dollars in the account.
Yeah, couldn't have put it better myself, Michael. Congratulations to you, Tony, and yeah, really pleased to see Temporale get back in the winner's circle. Let's move to Plutonium Lady. By the way, Bolt for Brilliance still coming south. Tony said the Southern campaign is still on. Here was a good battle, Michael, between these two good mares. Need You Now, she had her chance in front. Plutonium Lady worked hard, dropped to the trail, and I think that was the winning of the race for Maurice McKendry.
Yeah, lovely drive. Morris is driving wickedly well at the moment. Last week there was excuses for Need You Now. There was absolutely no excuses for her this week. She just wasn't good enough. Plutonium Lady going back to back, and G. Mark Jones is training well. He's drove the horse beautifully last week to win a race. This time he's had Morris in the sulky because of course he was suspended. You would think, Gregory, this won't be the last time we see her winning a decent race, because if she can travel and she's got a bit of gate speed and she can show courage at the finish, there are a lot of pluses. But yeah, Morris is driving extremely well, as we've seen a couple of times already tonight. So where she ends up, Greg, I don't know. You would have probably spoken to Jonesy more so than me. Need You Now, maybe surprised she got beaten in front, but no excuses.
No excuses there. Plutonium Lady will head back down here. I think the Southern Bell Series, she might head down there. And the Jules is still at the end of her campaign as well. So she's done a great job, and she's 2 from 2 in the north this campaign and earning some nice money to boot. Right, that leaves Alexandra Park behind. Half the show's just about gone, but it was such a big night. Had an opportunity to catch up with Gary Woodham because, of course, controversy, I suppose, for want of a better term, earlier in the week surrounding who could go where in the north. So I went out to Harness Racing New Zealand yesterday to get his take on what unfolded. Gary, COVID has thrown up many challenges for all of us, and last week was quite unique, particularly in the North Island. Talk me through your, I guess, attitude towards what happened last week.
Look, I think if I sum it up, we could all have done better. So that's the starting point. Message come from the Prime Minister Saturday night, 6 a.m. Sunday, it's all down. So we got our team together straight away. We put up the orders that we had been given for last time we were in level 3 for lockdown, so that all our participants could have access to it. We then sent an email to trainers so that they actually understood what was going on. Difference this time, Greg, level 3 in one part of the world, as in Auckland, the rest of the country in 2. Confusion straight away, so the phone started going. So there was a little bit of a scramble. What do we do differently? So that actually means we have to communicate with 4 different government departments to make the decision what happens. And it wasn't a hard decision to make because they were pretty clear. Prime Minister said Auckland is in level 3, it's a bubble, stay away, 5 million people, let's work as a team. We all got that. So what I did is got on the telephone and started ringing around prominent owners who have horses in those 7 big races at Auckland and trainers, and made it very clear that we have 2 options. Run the meeting on the particular day, which is the Friday, or we defer. Practically 100% said go with the day, so that's what we did. That turned into a completely different kettle of fish later on.
So Thursday night we had Cambridge, and obviously declaration of drivers happened Tuesday for them, I think Wednesday for Alexandra Park, and markets came out as well. So we talked before about hindsight being a wonderful thing. Should we have declared drivers as early as what we did? And is that one of the areas that we can improve on?
Definitely can improve on, but the answer to that was we went with what we knew. So we already had the understanding from the 4 government departments of what we could and couldn't do. We also knew that some people had some exemptions. It wasn't until late in the piece, which was around Wednesday night, Thursday, that one of those government departments told us that some of those exemptions do not actually fit the bill for what they actually think. Animal welfare driving a horse is not animal welfare, and people were looking to go to race meetings and drive with that. So we got caught on that, and so the only way we could do that is stop that movement. So that hurts drivers, hurts trainers, hurts owners, but it makes us look all silly. But the right outcome was there for the future.
Okay, but come Friday night, there were Cambridge-based trainers allowed to take their horses, gear them up and get them ready for those races on the Friday night. Did that fit under the animal welfare factor?
Yeah, it did, because what was talked about there was particular animals of young, 2-3-year-olds for a start, going there that were very expensive horses needing particular care. They hadn't done a lot of racing and they are used to their handler. So that was actually allowed through the animal welfare exemptions, whereas driving is not seen as animal welfare. So they made that real distinct difference, which we hadn't had before.
Okay, going forward, because that's got to be put to the side now. Was it disappointing for some people? Yes, but we've got to move on from it. Does this now mean that in the future, and let's face it, with COVID, nobody knows what the future is, if there are different levels? Let's say, for example, Regazo Mark, who's the favourite for the Diamond Creek New Zealand Derby, if Invercargill was in level 3 and Christchurch was level 2, I know it's unlikely, but hey, we would have thought last week was 2. Would that therefore apply again?
Yeah, it would. So that's the issue. We're working now with the 4 government departments to make sure that everything we've got sitting there today is what will happen next time. I agree with you, it probably will happen sometime. So we've got to be very careful that we don't keep changing the information for our participants. They've got to have some certainty, and that's what we're working on this week.
You must have enjoyed last Friday night, though. Gee, there was some cracking racing there. And what about the performance of Krug?
Oh, look, it was freakish, wasn't it? How does a horse get that far ahead from horses just raced the other week? It's just gone to another level. Just shows you, you know, that's another reason, by the way, Greg, that we made the decision with the trainers and the owners to race. Those horses have been prepped for that night. Now, anyone who knows about a horse, you set it for that night, it's ready to rumble. You leave it another week, a lot of things can go wrong. And we didn't feel that was fair to the owners and the trainers that put all that time in. But it was free. Well, great racing, let's be fair. And the turnover was up there. So I know we didn't have people on course, but the people were at home and hopefully they enjoyed it as much as you and I have.
So that was Gary Woodham, the CEO of Harness Race New Zealand. Michael, there's always going to be learnings in this situation, and it was completely unique having 2 different levels and 2 different areas so close to each other. But I guess the ultimate out of it is that we need to have more clarification going forward. I think we've got that now.
I'm not sure if we have, to be honest, Greg. I don't really know. I didn't have any clarification last week. It's a tricky thing dealing with COVID. Racing believes it's got the social licence and therefore we have to play, obviously, by the government's rules, which is clear. But I also think a lot of this was driven by galloping. There was a lot of galloping people were pissed off last week that they couldn't hold Ellerslie on Saturday and potentially even Sunday, and yet the harness guys could move. And that rattled the cage of NZTR, and then they got together with Racing New Zealand, and then the 3 of them went to the DIA. That was the mistake. They shouldn't have gone to the DIA. Once you go to a government department, they're going to say no to almost everything, because that's how government departments work. Once those people from the South Island or anywhere else had their travel exemptions, they should have been allowed to drive. And going to the DIA and asking again is like getting into a nightclub, having a few drinks and going back and asking the bouncer if you can still be there. The government had said they could drive, and then we went and sought more clarification. And I believe a lot of that was driven by the angst in the galloping community, as someone who deals in both communities. I don't think it was well handled. I don't think it mattered too much. Mark Purdon, it cost him a Group 1, but no one's going to care about that because Mark's driven plenty of Group 1 winners. I would have felt worse if Classy Operator had won and Dylan Ferguson had been cost his first Group 1. It's not easy. By all means, it's complicated. I fully understand that we have to play by the laws of the country. But those boys and girls, like Alicia Harrison, they had got their exemptions. To see Dylan at Alexandra Park handing the reins to an Auckland-based reinsman in Maurice McKendry was just nonsense. It's nonsense because it actually increased the chance of a virus being spread. That wasn't going to be spread anyway, but that's not my job. It's still nonsense because it increased the possibility of it being just spread. And I think harness racing was trying to do the right thing, but I don't think the right outcome came out of it.
We'll leave that there, Michael, and hope that, well, potentially we don't have to go down this path again. But if we do, we now have a little bit more clarification. I also asked Gary Autumn about something he talked about 2 weeks ago with regards to potentially changing our calendar to match what the Aussies have done from 1 January to 31 December. Here's what he had to say about that.
I won't get people too excited too early, but we've been working with our legal team and worked out what we think we could take forward. So we're going to put that in on paper. I'm going to go and see the Department of Internal Affairs next week and see if we can move that a bit quicker than I said. So the goal is still the 1st of August this year. I know it's a big, audacious goal, but we're feeling just that little bit more confident than we did a couple of weeks ago.
So I guess it's watch the space in that regard, and thank you for Gary for taking the time off the back of a board meeting, which he said there'll be a bit of news to come out of as well. Bit of a sad time in harness racing last Thursday. We lost a stalwart of the industry, Michael, and Trevor Beaton. He had a Queen's Service Medal for his contribution to education. He was a principal for over 15 years at Cobham Intermediate and well respected there. He bred over 80 foals. He often assisted me critiquing some of the work I did, even though at the end of it he always said, "You don't mind, do you?" He was just that sort of bloke. It's unfair that he's passed away at only the age of 70. He had so much more to give, and yeah, it's a really sad time for he and his family and everyone associated with Trevor Beaton.
Yeah, good guy. Good guy, fun guy, always had a smile and a handshake for you at the races, and we've lost a lot of racing good people in the last year, so yeah. One of the last wins I remember of his was invaluable. This is on Kaikoura Cup Day, the horse in front there, one of Trevor's, and yep, shame to see him go into his family, our condolences, but we know you guys would have loved this very special day.
Blazing Impact comes to on the inside. Admirable held on. Admirable wanted a nose on Blazing.
So a great performance was from Admirable. He's there with his great mates, Graham Igo, I think Peter Lagan was there, Ken Spicer, a former chairman of Harness Racing New Zealand, of course. They stayed on the track. That's Trevor coming to, as we're looking at the right of Blair Orange there, and Admirable winning that race. He was a pretty sick man at that stage, and we all thought how fantastic that he could win his first race at Kaikoura, but he was such a stoic character and a brave man that he carried on right through until last Thursday, and he'll be farewelled on Thursday at Addington Raceway appropriately. Short break for us here on Your Box Seat. When we come back, we'll head to Addington Raceway because they had some features over the week as well. Always a bit of fun and frivolity at the races, and Craig Wiggins had actually gone off to relieve himself, and Sam Otley thought she'd take over as the clerk of the course. Not too sure how that was all going to work really, because she can't drive and be the clerk of the course, but she thought it was a bit of humour, so it was great work to grab a photo of her aboard. All right, let's, speaking of Addington Raceway, go back to a couple of their features from the weekend. And Friday night there was some good racing there, earlier in the night actually, it was in the afternoon. Let's have a look at Henry Hubert. It's Northern Southland Cup this week, and he's won the last two of those. Here he was in front. Look, he was very brave to the end. When he's in front, he is extremely hard to beat. Steal the Show actually headed him, and we'll hear from the driver of Steal the Show and the man who looks after the southern branch of the Robert Dunn team, and John Dunn.
Steal the Show going to Henry Hubert, going through to third Burlington. Steal the Show, Henry Hubert coming again. Henry Hubert stuck the nose out and got there. Henry Hubert came again to beat Steal the Show. Third Burlington, fourth 18.
Well, I suppose a bit bittersweet. Halfway down you thought you were going to win, but the stable won anyway.
Yeah, it did right. My fella, he went really good. He hit the front and he might blew out, but he did that at Ashburton. He knocked off a wee bit, so we have to iron that out a bit. But he's going to step up to that grade, which is good. And yeah, Henry Hubert, he's pretty hard to pick back once he gets a lead like that and runs home off the front. So get his confidence back, which is very good.
All of these horses heading towards the Premier meetings, I guess, on the 19th, and ultimately the staying race, the Easter Cup. So that's the pathway?
Yeah, definitely. They'll both be back here on the 19th, all going well. And yeah, on to the Easter Cup, hopefully.
And Classic Brigade will be the same?
Yeah, just not too sure. Let me just sort of been a wee bit disappointed the last couple. So do some more homework there, and whether he's just had enough this season, and I know he's getting on, but I think there's still another year there with him. But whether we tip him out or press on, we'll just still decide that.
Yeah, some pretty interesting thoughts around Classy Brigade. He's been such a brave horse for the stable, and you go back to him running second to Lazarus in the Derby as a 3-year-old, so he's been around a long time. Speaking of Lazarus, one of the other feature races on the afternoon evening was the Lazarus Stakes for the 3-year-olds. Automatic entry into the Diamond Creek New Zealand Derby. Pace and Pride will definitely be there off the back of this performance, and we'll hear from Hayden Cullen to talk a little bit more about this progressive type.
Dashy Major, but it's a one-act affair. Pace and Pride is going to absolutely blitz them in the Lazarus Stakes. Pace and Pride won it easily. Getting up for second, Got You Covered, who came from nowhere to get second, and third was Better Call Me.
Well, that was the real Pace and Pride.
Yeah, it was, Greg. You know, he's probably raced the last 2 starts without any luck. He's always shown us a lot, and tonight we really saw the best of him.
What's been the difference? He appears to be a really happy horse, and you were saying before he's holding his condition a lot better.
He is, yeah. Normally he's quite a weak, skinny-looking guy, and he's, yeah, I don't know whether he's just toughened up a bit, and you know, he's really racing well and thriving, really.
Right, you've got now a pathway to the Diamond Creek New Zealand Derby. He was always going there, but he's guaranteed a spot now.
Yeah, that's right. It makes life a bit easier. So yeah, we'll press on probably to the 19th and look at the Vero after that, I think.
Yeah, really good performance from Pace and Pride. He looks like he has arrived. Got You Covered was excellent in second. Costello David had to move around and sit parked. I'm sure he'll improve off that run. His first, of course, since New Zealand Cup Day. Moving on at Addington Raceway to Sunday, and Play for Lee took out the time-honoured down by the Seaside Leonard Memorial. This was a sustained run from about the 600-metre mark. I thought she was excellent. She's trained by Regan Todd, and of course Robbie Close got the business done. Suntan was excellent in second at only her first start, but Playfully got the business done for the Heritage Ventures Limited. Good to see them get success there, and of course Scott Elliff, who used to be involved with Kenwood Farms back in the Smooth Fella day, getting back into the sport, and good result there for him, and a nice performance from Playfully. And nothing wrong of Anna Love getting into third as well, so those fillies I'm sure will progress on to bigger and better things. But Playfully made it 2 from 3 in the Leonard Memorial. On to the Cup, and we don't see Matthew Williamson training too many, but he got the business done here with Deus X, formerly trained by Jeff and Judith Knight. A brilliant beginning was the winning of this race for Deus X, and a very quick last 800 metres secured him the win. Good in second, Kiss the Girls. Pretty brave from her, but yeah, this was a good, really good solid run. First up since the Central Otago Cup, so again, a good training performance by young Matthew here, and Deus X took out the Cheviot Cup on what was an excellent day at Addington Raceway with so much sport going on. There was a lot of people about, and the club had a good day, and a smiling Matthew Williamson reined this one home and did it in good style with Deus X. So that's a wrap from Addington Raceway. Michael, we go deep diving, deep to the south if you like, and have a look at You May Collect. He goes forward this week to the Northern Southland Cup, Michael. So let's have a look at him winning over a mile. He rolled to the front here, and this was great to see. The runner-up, Pembroke Playboy, was excellent though.
Yeah, look, I think it was a race which was over a long way from home. Like, he's a wonderful speed machine, You May Collect. Once he led, and he blasts home here in sub 26 seconds, you're not going to get beaten. But I'm just thrilled to see him back. I realise that it's a huge deal for the stable to have him back, for Kirsten and Tank, and where he ends up, I don't know, whether he is actually a New Zealand Cup horse or whether he's probably actually better away from the 2-mile races and he's going to be a speed horse. We'll find out a little bit more about this weekend. I think Pembroke Playboy lost no admirers in running second, and therefore he's got a great chance. He's actually my tip for the week. I think Pembroke Playboy can beat him this week from the standing start because he might be quicker away. But really high-class race, vintage cheetah. There's a lot of good horses in the Deep South at the moment, Greg. And again, they're coming through, and they will be open-class New Zealand Cup contenders, those 3 or 4 horses, along with Deus X. Good race coming up on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, $2.80 the price if you want to back. You May Collect. Pembroke Playboy is $2.30 in what will be, excuse me, another excellent edition of the Northern Southland Cup. Let's go to Dark Horse. she will go around again this week in the featured trot. But Craig Ferguson doing the driving on this occasion, Michael, and Dark Horse, well, she's just a good horse.
She's a sweetheart. She's got plenty of speed, which is a pretty good tool to have. Interesting race this week. Chinese Whisper's up against her, who is stablemate, who's a pretty good horse, and Humble Lad's obviously a horse who's not easy to beat. So, yeah, I think, again, a really good trot race. Whether she's a Rowe Cup horse these days, I don't know. She's got a bit of wear and tear on her. She's had a career where she's had a few things go wrong, but at this level, she's always incredibly hard to beat. But Chinese Whisper this week, I believe Nathan's going to drive her, so maybe Craig gets another drive on this mare. Looking forward to that because it's a good double header, that bang bang, those two good horses with an extremely strong support card with the 2-year-old fillies as well down there at Invercargill.
Yeah, $2.30 about Chinese Whisper and $2.80. When I spoke to Nathan on Tuesday, he wasn't too sure who was driving what. Possibly him on Dark Horse, but that would have been sorted out by the time people watch this, Michael. And a really good day for the Northern Southland Club there on Saturday. All right, we need to leave things behind in New Zealand, and with Garrard's head across the Tasman. Michael, I'm going to get you to take us through the Aussie action, starting with the big one and the big double for Brecon Farms. Yes, King of Swing doing the business in the Miracle Mile, and in front like this, he's big, he's strong, and he's basically, around this track, unbeatable.
9 starts over the mile at Menangle, 9 victories. He got the lead very, very easily after the Black Prince, who's trailing him, held the lead. There's Expensive Ego outside him. Down the outside in the maroon colours is a very luckless, stylish Memphis, but too good. King of Swing, that's back-to-back Miracle Miles, Greg, and he is the archetypical horse who could win the Miracle Mile for the 3 times, the first horse to win it for 3 times, because next season on his home track, he's so good off the gate. He's a big, beautiful, long-striding pacer. Just blasted him. He's just a wonderful horse, King of Swing. So well done to Ken and Karen Brecon, because they've bred not only the Oaks winner, but of course the same dam breeding the horse who could well one day win 3 Miracle Miles. That's the second training success for Belinda McCarthy, second driving success for Luke. Expensive Ego will head to Brisbane and Melbourne. He'll keep on racing. Very good Wolf Stride in third for Anthony Butt and Sonia Smith. And Stylish Memphis had no chance, Greg, a long way from home, but she's had an outstanding campaign over there in Sydney. Majestic Man is one of the other New Zealanders on the card, and this was just embarrassingly easy. Blasted to the lead for Brad Williamson, of course trained by his dad Phil. Absolutely jogged home in 1:53. There's Pink Galahs getting off its back, but it was never going to catch Majestic Man. He's so good in Australia, you'd be tempted to leave him there, but of course he's syndicate owned, and the syndicate can't get across to see him because of COVID restrictions. So he's won 3 Group 1s during this 6-week campaign. He was luckless in the Great Southern Star when the draws didn't go his way. Brad Williamson actually stuck in Australia till March 23rd. He can't come back because he can't get into the quarantine facilities. So he's going to spend some time in Melbourne and Sydney learning about how they train their horses over there. Great campaign for him. Smart move from Phil and the syndicate to send him across there, and perfectly suited, Greg, to that type of racing because he loves to get on the nickel and get out in front. He'll be returning home, in fact did return home on Tuesday afternoon. Mark Shard is another horse who went across there from New Zealand, smart training by Barry Purdon. He said, hey, Luke McCarthy, have a go with this horse. See what you think. Start of this race, they went berserker. They just burned up so quick that he was just laughing, Luke. Sitting 3 back on the outside. He kicks clear here from Star Galleria, so it's like watching an Alexandra Park race in reverse. 2 of these stalwarts of Alexandra Park open class racing now doing the business in Menangle. Mark Shard will be a very, very competitive horse at the top grade over there. Luke McCarthy, when I spoke to him this week, said he's still learning our machine. He's still learning how it works over here. He'll be very, very hard to beat in any open class race heading forward. As I said to Barry and Katrina, congratulations on not only the Group 1, but on having the fortitude to send the horse to another trainer, because it's a really tricky thing to do. So they were 3 of the highlights. The other one, a horse we don't know so well over here, Pat's Beach Storm. This is the horse pulling to the outside. This is the New South Wales Derby. Now, he's the horse widest on the track. Trained by David Moran, who should have had Lachlan Varat in the Miracle Mile, but he got a hoof abscess and he couldn't start there. That's why you see this big salute here, because David Moran saying, I wanted a Group 1 tonight. I didn't get the one I wanted, but I got this one that's pretty darn good. I think he's at least as good as most of the 3-year-olds in New Zealand. He'll be sticking around in Australia though, because we're not going to mix those pools any time soon. David Moran getting consolation of the highest order, Greg, in the New South Wales Derby.
Thank you, Michael, for the wrap on Miracle Mile night. Also, the New Zealand Rural Games are on this weekend and the Sports Awards, and we've got John Morrison in the Young Sportsperson of the Year and Denise and Murray Goldsworthy potentially for their contribution in starting kids' carts. Short break for us. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up and talk about where you can go harness racing around the nation over the weekend. When you're in your home straight, in your box seat, let's get around the nation, find out where you can go harness racing this week. The Waikato Bay are plenty harness racing at Cambridge, 8 races there Thursday night, 5:41 is the start time there. Friday night action, we'll be back at Alexandra Park. 9 races there, first of those goes at 5:56 and on the meeting code of 5, slightly lower graded meeting compared to last time. Across the ditch we go in terms of, not across the ditch, across the hills. Kawateri Cup it is for 13,000, the first of 2 days, Westport and then Reefton. 2:03 the start time, 11 races there. Massive day, Northern Southland, their Cup. Of course, the Caduceus Club of Southland, Alabar Fillies Classic, the Pride's Easy Feed Southern Lights. That Trotters Southland Oaks didn't get off the ground. They only had 4 nominations for that. So a little bit disappointing there, but a great day of racing, 12:05. The first there on Saturday. Sunday it will be Reefton, the Anangahua Grey Valley Cup, 12:05, the 10 race program there, and plenty of people heading across the Alps for that. And Manawatu have half a dozen races there at 4:01 starting on Tuesday. And of course, Addington Raceway, this was a shift as well. It was to be Tuesday, now on Wednesday, 4:09 the start time for the 8 races there next Wednesday. Hits and misses from our friends at the TAB. Matthew Peden came through with these. A couple of good bets there. Copy that. 12k at $1.40. Probably the biggest and best of those. Couple of misses though. Costello David, 4,000 at 250. Ended up being a $2 favourite. Haiti Franco on Sunday was heavily back to win race 2. And you see at the bottom there, Krug has been well back to win the Diamond Creek Farm New Zealand Derby, now at a price of $4.20. Big thank you to Matthew Peden from the TAB. And some of those Jules markets are out as well. Michael Guerin, you found us a winner at last. We're off the duck.
It's been a tough comeback, Gregory. What has been hard to find is picking the wrong horses at the wrong time. Just as easily could have got it wrong last week, but Better Twist $1.70 was great money. Look, the bookies cop a lot of slack, but they gave you some big chances last week. $1.70 to $1.40, $1.35 for Better Twist. Krug $3.20, $1.80. Restrictions are another matter. A lot of people can't get on these horses, which is incredibly frustrating for people who are important to the industry. Those people are called punters, but the prices were actually fair.
All right, what about this week? Where do you go?
I'm going to Invercargill, of all places, Gregory. I really like Pembroke Playboy. I think he's got his chance in what's a really good cup. He's my bet of the week. I think he's got a really good chance of getting in front of You May Collect and beating him in what's going to be, I believe, the race of the week.
Yeah, and the Kawateri Cup for me, gee, there's a bit of form in this race, but yeah, I'm with Paraki Sealster. Grass track credentials are excellent, and I think, therefore, I'm happy to be involved there. What about Team Teal? It all gets wrapped up this week. Of course, we have the invited drivers, lady drivers only on both days. Sam Motley leads on 15, Cherie Tomlinson 7, but the most important thing there, 21,480 raised thus far. Well done to the team at HRNZ and the effort that they have made. Some news coming out of Addington. Derby night on the 9th. They have a new sponsor for a new punting competition. United Fisheries Company, Kip Ross-Kotzikas getting in behind that. We'll have some details on the show going forward. Michael, heck of a lot of information there. Well done on all the effort out of Alexandra Park, because I know it took some doing. Looking forward to a quieter week this week.
That's what we think, Gregory, but the way things are going at the moment, I'm sure there's going to be some news by the time we come back next week. To everybody who had a bet last week and got behind the industry at a tricky time, well done. Well done to all those young ladies involved also in Team Teal, Greg. They're raising money for a very, very important cause.
All right, that wraps up your box seat. Michael and I will see you in 7 days' time.